Hello students, so today we are going to discuss about the evolution of political power in Sri Lanka. The third lesson, evolution of political power in Sri Lanka. So we discussed about the ancient settlements from the prehistoric era to proto-historic era and up to the historic era. We discussed about the nature of the ancient settlements. So at the historic era, man reach to a certain development. They develop in their lifestyle, food style, and also their society became more advanced than the Stone Age. So after reaching to this advancement, they developed in various criteria. So one thing that they developed is the leadership. The leadership activities, the administrative activities of the society developed due to the improvement that they had obtained in this historic era. Right. Pre-state era. So, it is the nature of the ruling system which existed before the foundation of a state developed in Sri Lanka. Foundation of a state, that means the centralization of the power, the origination of the kingship. Before that, there was a certain ruling system that existed in the society. It was called the pre-state era. So pre-state era is the ruling system which existed in the society before the kingship or before the state developed in Sri Lanka. So the people developed time to time and generation to generation they developed, and later their administrative activities also developed up to a certain extent. So during this pre-state era, there are certain characteristics that we should identify. There were no definite ruler. Many rulers were there. According to their cleverness, according to their abilities, there were many rulers at the society. Wealthy chieftains dominated their power. The chieftains, the leaders of the village who were wealthy, they dominated the society and they got the leadership automatically due to their wealth. These chieftains were known as Paramukas. Paramukas got the leadership in the society according to the capacity of their wealth. They were given the power to rule large and small areas based on their wealth. So these things happened based on their wealth. In this Kodkalakanda inscription, it mentioned about the provincial power of these Paramukas. So they were powerful and they were rich with certain activities. They were wealthy. So because of that, a Paramuka had offered a cave to the Buddhist temples. They have offered a cave to the Buddhist monks, and in this inscription, this Paramuka was introduced as Thota Bojaka. Thota Bojaka means Tirthe Anubhava Karanna. The meaning is they collect taxes and enjoys properties. Collects taxes and enjoys properties. So this Paramuka was rich enough and they were enjoying their properties. So he was rich enough to offer a cave to the Buddhist monks also. It was mentioned in this Kodkalakanda inscription. It's a good evidence about the power of the wealthiness of this, to understand about the power of these Paramukas. And at this time, the householders, the activities or the characteristics of the householders, we have to identify that also. There were 1 to 30 families lived in one village. Chief of all these families were called Gruhapati. Gruhapati is the chief householder. Householders help in common activities of a village by representing each family. The chief householder, usually the father is the chief householder of a family, even in the modern family. So in the ancient times also, the chief householder was known as Gruhapati. So Gruhapati represented each house in common village activities. So they got a certain leadership by becoming the chief householder. Later, this chief householder's position developed up to Gamikas. So Gamika is a responsible person who was appointed among those chief householders to represent each village. He's a person who acted representing each village in the affairs between. So he got the power. Gramika was the powerful Guhapati. Among many chief householders, one person was appointed as a leader to represent the village in certain activities. So that this is the basis of the development of the administrative activities of Sri Lanka. This Gamika represented the marriage activities, exchanging goods, as well as solving problems. So they uh, contributed their service in solving problems among the village affairs, among certain people also. They were the chief of the ancient village, and village was separated with a jungle belt. So their administrative activities developed step by step, and they wanted to separate their village from others. So it was the main thing we used to separate this village with the jungle belt. Priority was given to the wealth of the profession of the householder. When appointing Gamika also, the wealthy householder became the Gamika. So he got the power to become the leader of the family. And this he should be rich enough to help the others also. When the other people in the village have certain problems regarding the food, regarding the harvest, paddy, this Gamika should be wealthy enough. His wealth should be sufficient to support this support the other villagers in certain activities. So according to the wealth, these leaderships were considered according to their wealth. So they had to maintain the peace and coexistence between other villages also. That was also one responsibility of these Gamikas. So this is how the leadership developed from the ancient society. Now this leadership has reached to the executive presidency. Earlier the Gamika, then Paramuka, then the kings, right? Then before the kings, the provincial leaders. Provincial leaders were these Paramukas. After this leadership developed up to the executive presidency in the world, centralized power. So I have given some questions. Write some examples of social and religious activities of Gamikas. So Gamikas had to perform in certain social activities and religious activities. They had to help the Buddhist temples, and they acted as they represented the village in village affairs such as marriage activities, exchanging goods, and also they represented in solving problems. So these things are some examples for their social activities. And they had provided certain facilities to the Buddhist temples also. It is said that in this there's a Gamika called Sumana and Gamika Sadhana. They had cleaned the caves and offered these caves to the bhikshus, the use of bhikshus. So these three people, they were living in a village, in the neighboring village to the Situlpavuwa temple. So they were able to maintain the peace and coexistence between the village, and a Buddhist temple situated in Situlpavuwa in this Koravagala belongs to this area. In the Buddhist temple of Situlpavuwa mentions about the Gamika Shiva, Gamika Sumana, and Gamika Sadhana. These people have cleaned the caves and offered to the Buddhist. So they had the responsibility of facilitating Buddhism also. It is also one important responsibility of Gamika. Right. Then after this, the Gamikas developed up to the Paramukas. So the most powerful persons among the Gamika were appointed as Paramukas. That happened during that period. Most powerful among the Gamikas. So when the population increased, the food production had to be increased. In order to increase the food production, in order to increase the agricultural activities, they needed more and more water. So this water was the most essential thing to improve the agricultural activities, and it was needed for the consumption purposes also. So construction of tanks came into practice under the leaderships of Gamikas and Paramukas. So they had to construct more and more tanks and provide facilities for the irrigational activities, for the agricultural activities of the village. So that was the main task of these Paramukas. They didn't have any other thing to do. They wanted to provide the facilities to increase the production of food to meet the increase in population. That was one thing. So their main task was to provide. The Paramukas had the main responsibility of providing irrigational facilities. So this thing developed up to the kingship later. Kings also did the same thing by constructing large scale tanks and facilitating the agricultural activities of the country. So the activities of the Paramukas, it is important to identify the activities of the Paramukas, represented all village tanks. He is the person who maintained and represented the village tanks, had the power to take decisions on the welfare activities of the people. Paramuka was responsible for each tank. So many small scale village tanks are still existing in the village in the dry zone. So each tank had a owner. I mean, each one Paramuka was responsible for each tank. So he had to maintain the tank and he had to distribute the water according to a proper way for the irrigational activities, agricultural activities. So it was the responsibility of this Paramuka. There were females also who had acted as Paramukas. The female of the Paramukas were known as Paramukalu. Paramukalu is the female leader. So at that time also the women leaders were available in the society. According to this, the evolution of the political power in Sri Lanka started as a divided system. So the political power was at a divided system. Many leaders were there ruling many areas of the country. So this is called a decentralized system. Many Paramukas were there. Each Paramuka was responsible for each area. So there was no one certain king, one certain ruler was not available in this decentralized system. So the beginning of the administrative activities of the Sri Lanka started from the decentralized system. Right. This is the nature of the decentralized system. It was composed with these Gamikas and Paramukas. Then only the kingship was originated. So kingship was another important step of development in this in the administrative activities of Sri Lanka. In Abulabi inscription in Matale, it mentions about a Paramuka. Paramuka was introduced in the term of king at that time. At that time, the people considered these Paramukas as the kings. A provincial king called Poshani Raja was mentioned in this Abulabi inscription, which is located in Matale. That is about the kingship. At that time also, Paramuka had the certain recognition in the society as a king. So there was a provincial king called Duhatra. It was mentioned in a cave in Yatahala temple in Kegol. So these things are the evidence about the Paramukas. So are the evidence to show that Paramukas were also considered as kings in the ancient societies. Later the kingship was introduced and it developed, centralizing the power. So in this kingship, after the kingship originated, the power was centralized. Earlier the power was decentralized. After this the power was centralized. Centralizing the political power means a country being united under one ruler. There is one ruler and the country is under that ruler. He is the only person who has the responsibility to continue the leadership of the country. As this executive presidency, one ruler is there in one place, country is united, it is called a centralized political power. After this, the concept of state was created and the king became the head of the ruling. So in this society, after centralization and administrative activities were introduced, the king became the head of the ruling. King is the head. First king who ruled under this concept was King Pandukabhe. King Pandukabhe is the king who ruled as a proper king. Earlier the King Vijay and other people were provincial leaders. They were just provincial rulers. They didn't rule according to a proper centralized kingship. So King Pandukabhe was known as the king who ruled the country according to a proper centralized kingship. That was the introduce of the centralization of the administration. King Pandukave ascended the kingship by fighting with his uncles. So these uncles of King Pandukave, they were known as the provincial rulers at that time. So he killed all the provincial rulers and became the king in Anuradhapura after selecting Anuradhapura as the main ruling center. And also he marked the borders of the city. So these are some of the characteristics that included in the proper administrative system, proper centralized administrative system. So King Pandukave continued the power after centralizing the power in Sri Lanka. Then King Devanampiyatissa. King Devanampiyatissa was also another king who continued the centralized administrative activities. He centralized the power due to the influence of the trade affairs in the Indian Ocean. So after centralizing the power, it was easy for him to maintain the trade affairs in the Indian Ocean. Inviting Shastrians to Kataragama and Chandanagama, that is under a proper leadership. He invited the other people of the countries for the royal ceremonies. Holding the coronation by following the instructions set by Emperor Ashoka. So he had proper international relationships with Emperor Ashoka, and he instructed him for a proper coronation ceremony, which was essential to establish the kingship. Emperor Ashoka had sent him the jewelry which was essential for a coronation ceremony. He sent everything from India, and according to this Indian tradition, Emperor Ashoka helped this King Devanampiyatissa to coronate as a proper king. So that is good. That is a good evidence to show about the international relationships after developing the centralized administrative structure in Sri Lanka. And Mihindu Tero, the son of Emperor Ashoka, introduced Buddhism due to the international relationships in this era. So Mihindu Tero introduced Buddhism. He arrived to Sri Lanka and introduced Buddhism during the rule of King Devanampiyatissa. So those are some important incidents that took place under the centralized power of Sri Lanka. And King Dutugamunu, it's very important about King Dutugamunu. I have mentioned only few facts regarding this king. So the 10 giants of King Dutugamunu, they were engaged as Paramukas. Before these 10 giants, you have heard about the 10 giants who had fought in King Dutugamanu's army against King Elara, South Indian King Elara. And these 10 giants of King Dutugamunu were engaged as Paramukas. Earlier they were Paramukas, but King Dutugamunu managed to get the help of them in the battlefield, and he got the help of these people, and they helped to centralize the power. It is mentioned that King Dutugamunu is the first king who organized a battle in a proper manner of organization. King Dutugamunu organized a battle. King Dutugamunu was the first to provide leadership to the first organized fighting movement in the history. First organized fighting movement was introduced by King Dutugamunu. It was against this King Elara. It's a very important matter regarding the ruling system of King Dutugamunu. And he shows his statesmanship by requesting the people to pay respect to the tomb of King Elara. After killing King Elara, he built his tomb in Anuradhapura, and he requested the general public who were travelling in horseback to get down from horseback and walk the distance passing the tomb, that is to pay the respect to this King Elara. It shows the statesmanship of this King Dutugamunu. It's a good name. And King Dutugamunu thought about the welfare of the people. While the Ruwanvelishaya was under construction, he opened 4 alms halls in the 4 entrances of Ruwanvelishaya to provide free food for the people who took part in this constructional activities of Ruwanvelishaya. And also he had paid salaries to the people who worked in Ruwanvelishaya. That is also an important point of his administrative activities. So then the King Vasabha. King Vasabha was also another important ruler. He belonged to the Lambakarna dynasty, King Vasabha, and he had appointed ministers to administer each district. he has divided the country into certain provinces, and he had appointed ministers to administrate each province. This Valipuram golden plate, in Jaffna, it mentions about the minister called Rishigiri, who had ruled Jaffna at that time. So that is an evidence to show about dividing the country into certain administrative areas and appointing ministers to administer certain areas. So it is mentioned in the Valipuram golden plate in Jaffna. Earlier, Jaffna was known as Nagadeepa. So after centralizing the ruling system, many international relationships spread because of this, after establishing a proper ruling system in Sri Lanka. So King Batikabe bought glass beads Ruwanelishaya from Rome. Still these glass beads are there in Ruwanelishaya. So it has been brought by King Batikabe from Rome. It's a good evidence for the international relationships that had been developed after introducing the centralized ruling system. King Devanampiyya Tissa's international relationship between Emperor Ashoka in India, obtaining Buddhism by Mahinda Thero, and even Sirma Bodhi by Sangamitta Thero, and the tooth relic, that is also important. So these activities took place after the administration system was centralized. Then the concept of state developed in the country. Concept of state. So that was the result of the origination of the kingship. King created the centralized political power in the country. King was the most powerful person, and there were certain duties of the king. King had to develop the country economically. Economical development of the country, that is the most important responsibility of the king. Providing security. Those days, many enemies, many internal and external enemies arrive in the country. So king had the main responsibility of providing security for the countrymen from these enemies. Enhancing spiritual development. For the spiritual development, king had to facilitate the religion. Mainly, he had to develop the Buddhism and facilitate the monks in the temples. That was one of other main responsibilities of the king. Providing security on the threats from enemies. Constructional irrigational activities. Irrigation activities, it was another main thing that was needed by the society, because the main source of living was agriculture. So agriculture needed proper irrigation facilities. So it was another responsibility of the king to provide these irrigation activities, developing canals, developing tanks, and providing water for the consumption and agricultural purposes. And building religious buildings, that is also another important thing. Religious buildings should be built and should be maintained, and the monks should be facilitated by the ancient specified things. So that was also another task of the king. So after this kingship was developed, king was introduced by certain terms. Devatta, Bodhisattva, Parvataraja, Chakravarti, Veeratta, Ishvara. Like that, king was introduced in certain terms. So King Kashyapa appeared as square. King Mahasen was worshipped as God Minneri. So those are the evidence to show about the certain different concepts which was used for kings. King Kulakanna Tissa was appeared as Nareshwara. King Nishankamalla used the line called Chakravarti Swamin Vahamsi. Chakravarti means Sakwiti in Sinhala language. Sakwiti Raja, that is the king for the whole country, leader for the whole country. So these terms were used to introduce the kings during these ancient times. And the inheritance of the kingship. That was somewhat important about the inheritance of the kingship. So kingship was inherited in different situations of the country. Sometimes it had passed from brother to brother. Kingship, the inheritance, the power, the legal power to become a king of the country. So the brother to brother kingship could be inherited from brother to brother. After King Devanampiyya Tissa, his brothers ascended the thrones. After King Duttugambunu, his brother Saddadissa ascended the throne. That is important. So the eldest among the youngest brothers came to the power. If there are about 4 or 5 youngest brothers, the eldest among those youngest brothers got the power to become the king in order. And the kingship was inherited from father to son. King Kavantissa to King Duttugambunu. After King Kavantissa, King Duttugambunu became the king. And King Vasabha to King Kannakatissa, that means King Vasabha's son. So elder son of the king or the elder son of the consort also became the king. Sometimes when the kings are having their second marriage, the consort can have a son from her previous marriage. So that after that the consort son also had the power to become the king. And king's elder son also have the legal ownership for the kingship. Sometimes there are certain conflicts between these matters. King Kashyap and King Mugalan, that was a certain matter. Because of the consort's king wanted to become the king, King Kashyapa built a fortress and ruled the country, and he wanted to protect from Mugalan. So that was certain. There was certain conflicts regarding this concept also. And kingship was inherited brother of the consort of the king, or the son of the king's sister. According to this Nayakar tradition, when there was no heir to the throne, the queen's brother were able to become the king. Queen's brother was able to become the king, according to Nayakar tradition. So see, King Sri Veeraparakam Narendra Singh, he didn't have a heir to the throne. So he was married to a South Indian queen. So after his death, his South Indian brother became the king of Sri Lanka. That's how the Nayakar royal lineage started in Sri Lanka, because of this tradition. Queen's brother, consort's brother, or the king or the son of the king's sister was also got the chance to become a king, according to this ancient inheritance of kingship. So these things are important to introduce about the different natures of the inheritance of kingship. Right. So I hope that you understood the things. We'll talk about the other facts in the next video. Thank you very much.